What's up, everyone? Matt Gajewski here, back again talking college football. And today we are going to be discussing Oklahoma ahead of the 2025 season. If you like this content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. That helps a ton for a small channel like this. So thank you if you've done that. And last disclaimer, we're recording this on May 1st. Stuff still will change before the regular season. If there's a position group that we are a little bit critical of, doesn't mean we don't like Oklahoma. I know a lot of fans have been upset with the analysis of some parts of rosters. If you disagree, leave a comment. Let me know where we might be wrong and why. That is important so we can get better, hopefully, as we do more videos and talk more teams. But let's look at Oklahoma's results from last year. Here is where they finished in overall efficiency metrics. This was a 6-7 team. They made a bowl. I was very surprised by that considering their injuries. And that's where it all starts. Offensively, this team was decimated. They lost their top 6 receivers and then some depth pieces after that. They were using walk-ons. They were moving players from defense. They had offensive line injuries, and that was not the best unit to begin with. After the 2023 unit basically lost their entire starting group. So you had a new group coming in, battered by injury, and all that certainly affected Jackson Arnold and what this team put on the field. SEC play was a little rough for them. This season was definitely highlighted by an Alabama win. Otherwise, they just beat Auburn. You're talking wins over Temple, Houston, Tulane, and Maine to get to bowl eligibility. And losses, they lost to Navy in the bowl game, LSU by double digits, Missouri by 7, Ole Miss by double digits, South Carolina by double digits, Texas by double digits, Tennessee by 10. Of course, must be noted, that's a rigorous schedule, and they will be playing one again this year. But the offensive concerns, I think, largely stem from injuries and then having to use depth pieces so quickly before they're ready, freshmen, sophomores, whatever it may be. Defense was not the problem. This unit was elite and probably the reason they get to bowl eligibility. But that's about it for the roster, at least how it did last year, because so much of it was injury related. It's hard to discuss, and a lot of it doesn't matter moving forward. We will have a much healthier Oklahoma this year, I hope. They've already dealt with some injuries in the spring, but it is what it is. It was a season limited ceiling-wise because of the injuries they sustained. Recruiting, this team has taken a step back each of the last 2 years. This year they come in 17th. And that is 10th in the SEC, obviously 100% retention on that class. That is what these graphs show you below. 2024's class, they were 8th overall, finished 5th in the SEC, retained 86% of that. They did lose their 5-star Arnold, but is what it is. He's actually from the 2023 class. And they were 6th overall. They're 4th in the SEC, only retained 41%. So as you can see, retention has been a bit of an issue for this team. They've had some turnover in their coaching staff. We'll talk about that. But they seem to be moving in the right direction. I just wonder if it's a little bit too late because you look at Brent Venables. He's entering his 4th season. He's 22-17. That's not good enough at Oklahoma. They just put up a losing record, 6-7. They were 10-3 the year before. Injuries do need to be noted, but at the end of the day, this is a criticism, a popular criticism, not necessarily mine. Results matter. Whether you're injured or not, you can't be finishing 6-7 as Oklahoma, and that's why his seat is hot. Again, I don't necessarily agree with it, but that's just how it is. He had to replace his OC. They now bring in Ben Arbuckle, who's the young whiz kid from Washington State. He coordinated that offense the last 3 years. He comes over with the QB, so there's continuity there between Arbuckle and their new QB, John Mateer. DC, Todd Bates returns. Again, this has been a strength. He's been there for a while now. Elite 2024 season, previously coordinated Clemson's defense. And one thing that's really impressed me with this OU coaching staff is they're now, especially on defense, loading up on former DCs at player position coaches. We're talking Nate Drilling as a former DC coaching linebackers, Brandon Hall, a former DC coaching safeties, Wes Goodwin, a former DC coaching other position at linebacker. There's a very deep group on defense for the position coach staff, a lot of experience, not just at the positions, but also calling defenses. So I think that is beneficial if you're Oklahoma. But let's dive into the roster this year. We have the 2 deep depth chart that we've added. This will be available shortly. And what it basically looks at is who's going to contribute this year in your 2 deep. Safeties are transfers are in yellow. Injured players are in red. there's a ton of them for Oklahoma, and it's very hard to parse who's seriously injured and who's not. So I left those out for now, but we have an injuries tab you can look at where you can see some of those players. Then it shows experience, how many snaps they played the last 2 years, their recruiting ranking in terms of a star rating, and then a value score. That starts with your recruiting ranking, and then the more snaps you play, the less it factors in recruiting, and the more it factors on field play. So Oklahoma makes the decision to move on from five-star Jackson Arnold, who certainly was done no favors in the offense, but he still finished 91st overall in total QB efficiency, and they moved to John Mateer. He played at Washington State. He's 6'1", 219, completed 64.5% of his passes, over 3,000 yards, 9 yards per attempt, 29 passing touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 18 big-time throws, 17 turnover-worthy plays. Ran a little hot on the turnovers, but still a phenomenal body of work. Extremely mobile, 826 yards. That's 4.6 yards per carry. The only question, he's now transitioning as a one-year starter from the Mountain West. Yes, the Mountain West. Look up Washington State's schedule if you don't believe me. I know technically they were a Pac-12 team. 75% of their schedule was Mountain West teams. Anyway, now you're moving to the SEC. This is a big step for a 3-star quarterback, a one-year starter who now is playing with the big boys. We'll see how it goes. That's my lone concern. He's an awesome prospect. They also returned Michael Hawkins. Had to take over multiple times last year when Jackson Arnold sputtered. Completed 63% of his passes for 6.5 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Had 3 big-time throws, 5 turnover-worthy plays. He can also run, probably not as much as Mateer, but 3 yards per carry. Good recruit as well. So the quarterback position should be solid for Oklahoma this year. Running back, they basically return everyone of consequences. You're talking transfer portal departures like Gavin Sawchuk, who completely lost the job. But first of all, I want to start with Cal transfer Jaden Ott, who gets run out of town after Brian Harsin has the, I don't know what you call it, a debacle of a spring. Every offensive skill position player basically departed Cal, but Oklahoma is the beneficiary. They get Jaden Ott, who's 6 feet 210. His best season was in 2023, where he rushed 246 times for over 1,300 yards, 5.3 yards per carry. Last year, he played through an injury, and that at least needs to be a credit to him. He's a warrior. He will play through injuries. So that wasn't the most efficient season, I think, predictably. He has 95 career catches. So he should lead the backfield. What level of committee it is, I'm not sure, because they do have other capable backs. Javonte Barnes, 4-star, 577 yards last year, caught 17 passes, was limited to 9 games due to injury. He's 6 feet 207. Sophomore 4-star Taylor Tatum had some spark, 5 yards per carry last year. He's 5'10", 205. 3-star Xavier Robinson even emerged at a point last season. 49 carries, 4.8 yards per carry, caught 13 passes. His 6 feet, 222 pounds. Running back's never been the problem for Oklahoma. They were deep last year. Maybe you could argue ceiling, but I think this year they have the depth, and now Jaden Ott provides the ceiling with a certainty. So this is a very good group. Wide receiver, it can't possibly be worse. They lost a lot of guys, but a lot of them were just transfers departing the program now that the players are healthy, and they had some transfers. So this starts with Deion Burks, the Purdue transfer. Last year he was hurt. He's 5'9", 190. He caught 47 balls for 629 yards and 7 scores in 23. Comes back last year, 31 catches, 238 yards. He's a slot receiver, 86% of the time in the slot. I do have some questions about him. He played out wide with Purdue. His yards per route the last 2 years have been 1.46 and 1.58. That's just not good enough to be an elite player like a wide receiver 1 caliber. And people see the counting stats with Purdue. That was an awful team. So he's the target dominator for an awful team. Now he used to play in the SEC. And last year, the injury muddled the results. But I think he's still probably best as like a slot receiver, wide receiver 2 in your offense. And I'm just not sure he'll be able to play that. Again, this is a question. Everyone's projecting a step forward, and maybe I'm a little slow on this. But Burks, his yards per route have actually not been as impressive as you might think, especially playing in the slot. From there, they add Arkansas transfer Isaiah Satina. He's a 4-star. Has had a lot of trouble getting on the field until last year. 5'11", 185, 37 catches, 491 yards, and 1 score. Basically, didn't play before that at all. Last year, he also played in the slot, so his skill set is redundant with Burks. 93% of the slot, 1.27 yards per route is awful. That was with Taylon Green, too. Honestly, I think you probably keep Satina in the slot and you move Burks outside, which is not his best position. So already you have kind of a logjam at receiver. From there, I don't know who's going to be wide receiver 3. Jaden Gibson is supposed to be back. He's a former 4-star, hurt all last year. He did suffer a setback in spring. Venables wouldn't comment on it. But in 2023, he caught 14 balls, 375 yards. That's 27 yards per reception. You could definitely use that downfield ability. Last year's class had 3 4-stars, Zion Carney, Ivan Carrion, and Zion Raggins. All of them had to play. Carney was the most productive with 8 receptions, 128 yards. Raggins and Carrion both did not even get to 100 yards receiving. Raggins played the most, but this is a mess. They do have a couple 4-stars that could play right away, Elijah Thomas and Manny Choice. Manny Choice has been receiving the most hype in spring, but a lot of that's because they've had a lot of injuries in the spring. I'll get to that in a second. They also had transfers. Giovanni Gibson, he comes from Arkansas Pine Bluff. Keontae Lewis, the Southern Illinois transfer, formerly of Wisconsin and UCLA. And Josiah Martin from Cal. Martin's not going to play for this team, so he's an afterthought. Gibson, the Pine Bluff transfer, 6'3", 205, 70 catches for 1,200 yards. The problem is he broke his leg in the spring. He was an FCS All-American. Not sure on the recovery with him. Lewis played a lot with Wisconsin in 2022, but he had to move down to the FCS to end up actually getting production, so he's a question. And then on the injuries, Giovanni Gibson's been hurt, Jaden Gibson's been hurt, Satina's been hurt, and Keontae Lewis has been hurt. All of them have been injured in the spring. Every one of those players is either coming off an injury or is a newcomer to the offense. So a lot of this is going to hinge on what we get from Burks, because even Satina has not been healthy in the spring. Just a very weird group. I think there is ceiling to it, especially with the high-level recruits, but we need some development here. Turning your OC over midseason last year definitely did not help the development of these players. Tight end, they lose Bauer Sharp. He goes to LSU. They also lost backup and rotational tight end Jake Roberts, leaving 4-star Caden Helm as the most experienced player with 71 snaps. Cade McIntyre's second most experienced at 48. They spammed this position in the portal, but none of the additions were very good. Carson Kent comes from Kennesaw State, only 18 catches last year. He's undersized at 240 pounds. Will Huggins comes from Pittsburgh State. He played with Kansas for 4 years, but he could never get on the field. He had 60 snaps in 4 seasons, so he goes down to Pittsburgh State where he plays pretty well, but we've already seen what happens with him at a high level of competition, and now we're going even higher. We're talking not Big 12 with Kansas, we're talking SEC. And then they had John Locke. He played 189 snaps with Louisiana Tech in 3 seasons. They do have a 4-star freshman in Trine Washington, but man, this unit is very reliant on Helms and McIntyre at the top. I don't know what you can possibly get out of these transfers. They're so low level. And then we get to the offensive line. This is another unit like receiver. It can't possibly be worse. Left tackle, they return former 4-star Logan Howland, 502 snaps last year. Best blocker of the group, only 19 pressures allowed, pretty good run blocker. So left tackle is a good position for them. Left guard, they return Heath Ozada, 630 snaps. He was very good as a pass blocker, below average as a run blocker, so a little imbalanced, but I think the left side of your group is pretty solid. Center should be pretty decent too. Troy Everett's back. He started much of the last 2 seasons. Last year was a good season for him, only 7 pressures allowed. Previously, before he even got to Oklahoma, he started with App State, so this is a 3-year starter. Honestly, the entire left side and interior is pretty good. At right guard, we return Fabechi Wiwu. He's formerly a North Texas transfer, 864 snaps. Wiwu, I forget how to pronounce that. I know the N's are silent. Wiwu, he had 16 pressures last year. Pretty good pass blocking numbers. Above average as a run blocker. So this is a good position as well. Just a low-level transfer overall, and that's a lot of this OU O-line. Fortunately, much of it is assimilated to the SEC pretty well. Right tackle's up for grabs. I don't know who's going to play this. The first name to mention is Western Carolina transfer Derek Simmons. Just a super low-level player, but he was actually pretty coveted in the portal. He didn't allow a sack last year. Occasionally, you see these players without problems coming up. The evaluators know who's a better candidate for this than others. Actually, Simmons, I think he's a pretty good option. For depth, they added a couple Stanford transfers. Jake McCullough, he was awful. He played tackle mostly, allowed 41 pressures over the last 2 seasons. And Baklenko has not been much better. He allowed nearly just as many pressures. So, I mean, these 2 Stanford guys, not really what you want outside of depth. Jacob Sexton's still on the roster. He has 920 snaps over the last 2 years. He's a former 4-star, but he's never even been average. We're talking a below average player. Jake Taylor played 169 snaps. I guess for depth, you do have some pretty interesting guys. Eddie Pierre-Louis, a 4-star sophomore. Michael Fasusi is an incoming 5-star. I think he has to play in your 2 deep right away, maybe not start, but I think he needs to be at least a swing tackle. And Ryan Foji is an incoming 4-star, probably on the interior. So there's a lot of names, a lot of bodies. They're definitely deeper. I have questions with most of the transfers, but I think you could probably piece together a good offensive line group. If there's injuries, I think you're immediately reliant on the depth. What do you get out of Fasusi, the 5-star? But overall, it's hard to project anything but growth from this offense. My real question overall, before we get to defense, are we talking an offense that can be top 30, or is that too much of a step? Again, because of the injuries, this unit was outside the top 100. Are we talking average, or are we talking, legitimate top 50, top 30 unit? I would tend to side slightly above average, but we'll see where this comes in. I think it has a chance to probably be a top 30-ish unit, maybe a little worse than that, dependent on how we see Ben Arbuckle handle Deion Burks with John Mateer and how the offense all comes together. It's just a lot of change one year to the next. Defense should still be very good, even with some departures. They lost 2 of their top 3 edge rushers, the biggest one being Ethan Downs. But our Mason Thomas was elite last year on 529 snaps. He had 35 QB pressures, good run defender. I mean, this guy has good run defense numbers across the board, too. This should be an awesome player to start with for this team. From there, I think Adepoju Adebaware is your second most likely to start. He has 303 snaps, former 5-star. He doesn't have a lot of production, but I think part of that is just his defense being so loaded over the last 2 years. So I hesitate to really penalize Adebaware for not getting on the field, considering everyone above him has been awesome. But he's a former 5-star. They have good depth. 4-stars, Danny Okoye, he's played a bit. Taylor Wine has played a bit. He's a former 3-star. They brought in Marvin Jones Jr. He's a former 5-star of Florida State and Georgia, but just never really played that much. 387 snaps last year, average numbers. 4-star freshman CJ Nixon comes in. The edge group is loaded. Defensive tackle, they have 2 studs back in Demonic Williams, the former TCU transfer, and Grayson Helton. Demonic started last year with OU, started 2 years before that with TCU. Amazing run defense numbers. He's an absolute space eater at 320 pounds. Helton is more of the pass rushing complement inside, 29 pressures from the interior, above average run defense metrics. This is a great interior. Jaden Jackson also returns, 387 snaps for him, good run defense numbers. They were able to keep David Stone, their 5-star sophomore, who briefly entered the portal and now is back. And this doesn't even include 4-stars Wyatt Gilmore, Nigel Smith II, Trent Wilson. For some reason, Ricky Lolahea came in from Utah State. He's not going to play. But this defensive line is just absolutely loaded. It should be another strength of Oklahoma this year. Linebacker, they lose Danny Stutzman, but they're still in a pretty good spot. 4-star Kip Lewis is back. He was 3rd on the team in tackles last year. Actually good in coverage. Solid overall player for this defense. 4-star Kobe McKenzie is also back after 337 snaps. He had 30 tackles, which is solid. And then we saw a lot of flashes from Sammy Omosigo, from former 4-star. 39 tackles and 301 snaps for him. Omosigo was awesome last year. That doesn't even include, they have a former starter and 4-star in Jared Canuck. He got benched last year, but 569 snaps the year before. He lost his job due to poor play, but this is a very deep linebacker group. All of them are basically 4-stars, and you have elite talent up at the top. We didn't even talk about Kendall Daniels coming in from Oklahoma State. He's a really weird hybrid player. He might not even play linebacker, but I think that's his best position. Over 2,000 snaps in his career. Really good pass rusher, actually, but he's super undersized for that. He previously played in the slot, so there's just a lot of things he can do as your Swiss Army knife. They also have 4-star James Nest is still on the team. Front 7 is going to be awesome. Defensive back, you have a couple departures. Billy Bowman is really the only one of consequence. So I think you're in a pretty good spot. On the boundary, Eli Bowen returns after 510 snaps as a freshman. Elite in run defense, only a 54% completion percentage in his coverage. That's a good spot. The second boundary corner position is up for grabs a little bit. I think former 4-star Gentry Williams, who comes back after a season-ending injury, has the best shot to play this. 372 snaps in 23, but he'll have competition. Former four-star Jacoby Johnson played a bit last year. I almost feel bad for Johnson. Their receiver room was so hurt they needed to play some offense. So did that really stymie his development? That's a question worth asking. He's back, good recruit. He could potentially play. So that second boundary position is up for grabs, but I think you'll have a good starter regardless. Nickel's locked down by Kendall Doby. He was also hurt last year, got just 94 snaps off before he was injured, but he played 475 snaps in 2023. Former four-star with good production in 23. Former four-stars, Devin Jordan, Reggie Powers, Jeremiah Newcomer still on the team. 2 incoming freshmen in Tristan Haynes and Cortland Gulleroy are on the team now. So corner's in a good spot. Safety, again, they lost Billy Bowman, but you still have former 5-star Peyton Bowen and former 4-star Robert Spears-Jennings on the roster. Peyton Bowen played 757 snaps the last 2 years. He was up and down, but still pretty good coverage numbers. As long as we can allow him to maybe not allow so many big plays, 17.3 yards per reception when he did allow them. But overall, a former 5-star, this is a good place to start. And then Spears-Jennings, elite run supporter, 66 tackles. That was second on the team. Coverage was a little bit suspect for him, 73% completion, but safety's in a pretty good spot. And then they have some sophomore 4-stars, Jaden Hardy, Michael Boganowski, incoming 4-stars, Omarion Robinson and Marcus Wimberly. This defense is going to be awesome. And special teams should be solid too. They bring in a kicker, Tate Sandell from UTSA. He was the 19th most efficient kicker last year. Sandell missed just 1 extra point, 4 field goals, but 3 of those 4 came beyond 50 yards. So the UTSA was really pushing him deep down the field. So it's a good special teams unit. And overall, every question in the ceiling for Oklahoma comes down to their offense. How does Mateer blend with Burks, and can the receivers stay healthy? And can we get an offensive line step, which I think is likely? Let's go to the schedule for Oklahoma. It is brutal. There's no way around this. They have to play one of the most difficult schedules in the SEC. They're up there with Florida. Their non-con has a couple cupcakes in Illinois State and Kent State, and Temple, but you have to play Michigan. So immediately, Wolverine's a very difficult opponent for most teams. Playing in the SEC and then having Michigan is tricky. You play a lot of the toughest teams in this conference too. You have to travel to Alabama. You get Texas. And then the most important thing, you do dodge Georgia and Texas A&M, but you basically get none of the bottom feeders of this conference. I mean, we're talking Arkansas, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Where are they? None of them are on this schedule. Instead of playing at least one of the bottom teams, the worst team they face is probably Tennessee, which is saying something. You're playing Auburn. You're playing LSU. You're playing Missouri. You're playing Ole Miss, South Carolina. This is the middle of the SEC, but there's not that much separating these teams in the middle. I mean, there's a wide range of outcomes because of this extremely difficult schedule. On paper, the talent for Oklahoma should be a bowl team, but because of the way the schedule broke, I mean, this team could go 5-7. And I don't think that's the most likely. I think you're looking at 6-6, 7-5. My first question, is that good enough for Venables to keep his job? Or is this a Napier situation, or is he gone? I don't know. Extremely difficult. They're right up there with Florida for most difficult schedules in the SEC. This is a brutal run out for Oklahoma and Venables this year, but we'll see how it goes. Optimistic on Oklahoma. They're going to be a fun team with Mateer and the offense improving, but just challenging schedule top to bottom. We'll see how it goes, but thank you guys for watching. Until next time, good luck. We'll see you again soon.